Hey, I think we are live. I think it's Thursday. I'm not sure. I'm losing track of time. But of course, it is live at Epiphan here. And Marta and I have an exciting topic to bring to you today. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what we're talking about today, Marta?
Hello, everyone. Hello, George. You're right there next to me. And so today we're going to be talking about you going up very quickly if you need to do a virtual classroom. So I know of a lot of teachers who are scrambling, unfortunately, with the current world situation to set up online learning. And we are going to be talking about how you can do that very quickly using live streaming.
Yeah, exactly. And in most places, and especially in the U.S. and in Canada, university campuses or all schools are shut down to in-person classes. And as Marta said, people are trying to figure out, what do they do now? So we wanted to cover a few different options, from the very easy, the very quick, all the way into maybe the more sophisticated, depending on what you have on hand. So let's take a look at the first one. If you need to do it really quick, really fast, in a hurry, you don't have a lot of equipment, you don't have a lot of time, you don't have time to consult with maybe the IT staff if you are in a larger organization, that might be to use something like YouTube.
Yes, YouTube could actually be a very good solution, as you, George, said, if you don't know what your school has, or maybe your school isn't lucky enough to have something like Cultura or Panopto, which we're going to get to a bit after. But you can use YouTube to live stream content out to your students. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and of course, there's pros and cons to this. The pro being that it's obviously a free option that you can do from basically anywhere. Um, Accessibility is extremely high because obviously it's YouTube. Everybody, especially the kids these days, they know exactly how to use YouTube. So, understanding the interface is not foreign. It's something that everyone understands.
and it doesn't
Um,
device you have or what operating system you have, you can always find a stream on YouTube.
Exactly. It very cross-platform. Um, there can be obviously live chat, just like we have with all of you guys right now. So you can do a little bit of Q&A and interaction with the viewers, so that can be helpful. You can obviously schedule things just like we do with this show, and of course announce that ahead of time and share, the watch page with people ahead of time before you actually go live. And then of course, if it's short enough, it'll convert to VOD, and you'll have that video asset on YouTube already to share after the fact. So that's always a great advantage that way. But YouTube does come with some cons.
That's right. And some of them, there is limited privacy. You can set your stream unlisted, which means you would have to share that link directly with your viewer. But if you're sharing that link, you can share the same link with other people, basically.
Yeah, there's nothing to stop your viewers from maybe wanting to troll you by sharing it even broader when they shouldn't be. So that can be a downside. The access control is not as restrictive as it could be on other platforms.
Mhm. There's a very limited teaching tool set. With some other more specialized platforms, you can do things like quizzing and accountability and calendar integrations. With YouTube, what you see is what you get. You just get that stream.
Yeah. You get chat, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So you can do roll call, but your student could also just open the window and just have it open. And
Exactly. They can walk away. You have no idea whether they're really an active and engaged viewer or whether they just left the window open and walked away.
exactly. And on a related note, there's no control over the suggested video section that is also on YouTube. So it's very easy to click on that, latest memes video instead of
Exactly. Yeah, and the other thing obviously is that depending on what it is exactly you're trying to do, there might be some delay and latency to some of the communication you're doing. Things along those lines that just slow things down a little bit, or maybe not quite as live as you might experience in an actual physical classroom. And the last one's a big one, and I've run into this with a lot of customers the past 2 weeks who are trying to adapt to doing things remotely, And that is with the extra content, things like using music within their production. As we've said many times on this show, if you're using YouTube or Facebook or any platform that has automated algorithms for copyright protection, just don't use music. Period. You will get caught up in it somehow,
Yeah.
even if you think you're using music that is free to use. It's probably going to get flagged anyways, and particularly with YouTube, if a live stream gets flagged for copyright, they take the live stream down immediately, and you really have no recourse to that.
Mhm. Now, I also want to mention that we have a blog up right now that I'm going to ask our moderators to throw into chat. All of this information is going to be available there. So if you want to use YouTube for remote classroom or remote learning or distance learning, you can read our blog and find out what equipment you need, how to set it up. Again, the pros and the cons. You can find all of that in our new blog.
Yeah. And of course, there's lots of different ways to live stream on YouTube, and we're going to break those down in a little more detail. But a lot of the ways that you can do this to YouTube can also be done to a content management system. So we're going to touch on particularly Panopto and Kaltura, which the Perl family of encoders can directly integrate with. These are already extremely popular platforms in the education space, mostly with universities. But what it means is that chances are in a larger university setting, there's probably already some kind of platform in place, like a Panopto or a Kaltura, and checking with your IT staff or the AV staff or whoever's in charge of that stuff to see what you can do remotely to it. There's probably an option. Maybe you get to take a Pearl home. Maybe you can do it from a computer. But the physical setup of this is actually pretty similar to the way you might make some choices for YouTube as well. Um, the
There's just a
big
bit more privacy settings, and there's a richer tool set that you can use.
exactly. Yeah, essentially going to a CMS, a content management system, basically deletes the entire con column of YouTube, and it becomes irrelevant because you can do basically anything you want within that platform.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a much more flexible platform than YouTube. And as you said, George, reach out to your IT team. I'm sure there are plans in place right now to make this accessible to as many teachers as possible and as many students as possible. To a point where some universities actually allow their teachers to go in with all measures of precaution, obviously, and take advantage of the studios that some of these
Right.
universities have. However, if you don't have a studio and you want to learn more about the ways of setting up your stream, we're going to tell you about that right now.
Yeah. So we wanted to focus on sort of three different methods, and these could all be used with pretty much any platform for the most part that we've talked about. Um, and, you know, basically there's some very simple ones. The webcam only, that's a very, very basic one, very common for YouTube, where you can do it right in a browser. You don't need any specialized software. You don't necessarily need any specialized equipment. You can literally just go onto YouTube, click on the go live button, and you can choose your webcam as a video source, and get going that way. It's not necessarily going to be the best quality video, probably not going to be the best quality audio, but it is the quick and dirty, simple way to just get going right away.
That's right. And if you want to do a screencast, which means if you want to share your screen alongside with your webcam, you might have to use streaming software like OBS. There's really no easy, quick way to do it now that Hangouts don't really allow it anymore. So you might have to get into OBS just a little bit if you want to know how to share your screen.
Yeah, there's definitely other options beside OBS, the typical things we've talked about on this show, and we have, blogs about these different software choices as well. Things like vMix, Wirecast, XSplit, and so on. Basically, any of the streaming software that allows a larger live production environment where you can mix different inputs, screens, and cameras. So maybe to dress it up a little bit, you might use something like OBS, capture your screen for your slides and your presentation, but then also still use your webcam as the main video shot. You can kind of take it a step further by upgrading your camera and using a capture card like an AVIO HD or an AVIO 4K and use a much, much higher quality camera, which probably starts to open you up to higher quality audio in some cases as well. Bring that into an OBS with your screen share and, really up the game fairly significantly.
Yeah, and if some classes require more hands-on stuff, so you might need maybe two angles. So maybe you could connect two cameras to your live stream. That's actually what I'm using right now. I have a camera in front of me. I have an AVIO 4K, and that is connected to my laptop, and that is how I'm going live.
Yeah. And I should also mention that this type of a setup where you might use a capture card and some of these other video sources, um, a lot of cases, if you do have a CMS platform like a Panopto, they have their own applications, a Windows app or something like that, that will fully integrate within the CMS so that if you are not doing the YouTube live thing, again, check with your IT staff. You might be able to install the software that plugs directly into the CMS without any sort of extra gear, but you do want it to be as high quality as possible. So if you guys remember last week's episode where we talked about, when you are going to use a webcam, try to make sure it's not, pointed up your nose and you're trying to have high quality audio. Just because we're trying to do things remotely doesn't mean that we should be reducing our effort or the quality of what we're trying to do.
Exactly. So if you want a quick and dirty way to capture video sources, you can check out our capture cards like the AVIO 4K or the AVIO HD. Quick, simple. I did it in like 3 minutes today.
Yeah. The other option, of course, is to use a hardware encoder. Like I mentioned earlier, the Pearl family of encoders, both the Mini and Pearl 2, directly integrate with Panopto and Kaltura as content management systems. But of course, they can also live stream to any platform that can ingest RTMP or RTMPS like YouTube. And I actually just saw someone had shared it with us just 20 minutes ago or so. There was a YouTube video of someone doing a how-to use a Pearl Mini to stream into a Microsoft Office 365, Microsoft Teams environment. So it might be that many education institutions are using that type of environment internally as well, as part of Microsoft Teams or as a collaboration platform. So you could do that just as easily with a hardware encoder like Pearl as well, to stream to those. So lots of possibilities. Of course, big advantage with the Pearls, as I think you all well know, it means we can bring in an HDMI camera, an SDI camera. We can bring in high quality audio. We can do all of our mixing and switching, streaming, recording, all these things at the same time. And particularly on the Mini, it has that touch screen on the front of it that's nice and large. You could have that on the desk in front of you and essentially just operate it on your own without any extra help.
Yeah, and you can stream directly to YouTube from Pearl 2 and Pearl Mini, and you can stream to almost any streaming platform, CDN like Kaltura or Panopto. So
Yeah,
that's a really easy option.
exactly. And I guess the
Sorry,
third.
George. I was going to mention that Phil in chat was just asking, "Are you in the studio? Tell us."
I'm not. No, I'm using the same trickery I did last week, where I have this wonderful picture of the studio that I have in the backdrop. I wish I was in the studio, but no, we're doing everything remotely once again.
So, okay, sorry for interrupting you. Tell
No,
us about the third way.
yeah. So Cameron brought up the shot there of our wonderful empty studio, nobody home. But speaking of studios, another great option, especially as Marta mentioned earlier, if you might still have access to campus and you can use a studio, but maybe no one else is around, if there's a studio space that you have allowed to go in and do by yourself, a studio space, or even looking at creating your own home studio, is ultimately going to be your best high quality solution. And there's a lot of pieces to that, of course. But we have a couple things we can kind of show you to that effect.
Here, that's right. We have here an illustration of, something that it can be, and we talked a lot about last week. We talked a lot about how to look good when working from home. This is very similar. Even at home, you can create a very nice environment if you just kind of make the background clear, maybe a pop of color, right? Make sure you have some lighting. Make sure you have. So for the lighting, we actually talk a lot about the 3-point lighting setup, which is kind of like the classic way to do it. For example, the way I have it set it up right now is I have 2 lights in front of me, one being the stronger key light and one being the fill light. I do not have a light behind me right now, I'll be honest. But if I did, I would have a nice rim of light around me and it would look even better.
And to be honest, with a black backdrop, the way you have it set up right now, Marta, you don't really need that extra light behind you as a backlight. Where, again, I'm using a chroma key to hide the green screen behind me, but that's a different consideration again. But definitely, if you can, getting a 3-point lighting system, especially if you want some detail in the background, if you have props or some sort of set with detail, you want at minimum a 3-point lighting system to help eliminate any weird shadows and stuff like that. um, that's a fairly good baseline. You can definitely go even crazier if you have the perfect space. You can look at really dressing up a fancy studio. And earlier this week, we were looking at examples of people who are already doing this remotely. And the first one I want to talk about, since we were talking about studios, would be pretty extreme, but a very cool one. That's using what's known as a Lightboard Studio. And we have quite a few customers in higher education who use Pearl 2s in these types of studios for all of their recording. Um, and what a Lightboard Studio does is, essentially, with the right lighting setup and a black backdrop, essentially a blacked out room with the right lighting setup, you can put a piece of glass in front of the speaker, the teacher, and they can write on it with, whatever marker. And essentially, it's a much more natural way of doing a presentation, like they're turning to the whiteboard or chalkboard behind them, but it's in front of them. So they never have their backs to the camera. It appears much stronger. And it's a very fascinating piece of tech that some people have been playing with, and it can be very cool. It does, you do need some good lighting setups for that, but I encourage you to check out Lightboard Studios. You can Google search that and you'll find all kinds of instructions on how to make these. You feed that video from the camera into your encoder like a Pearl of choice, do your recording or live streaming that way. And that can really, if you're the kind of teacher that relies on the whiteboard and drawing and writing a lot, that can be an extremely powerful tool to really make the content more engaging for people remotely.
That's really cool, George. So I'm guessing they flip the image in the end somehow. So the
Yeah,
right naturally, not like flipped, but
exactly.
the image gets flipped. That's really cool. I was looking at some other examples. I was looking at the Khan Academy a lot. You should definitely check out their channel. They do a whole wide range of different videos, from recorded videos, but they also do live streaming a lot. So for example, Sal Khan does a lot of virtual office hours where he just hangs out with whoever's in chat, answers questions, and he also does a lot of screencasts. Very simple, just his voice and a presentation on the screen. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it, a lot of possibilities. The other option we had up there just now, or another case, is high school streaming their entire musical, their entire spring musical, so everyone can see it, because they spend so much time preparing. Um, they really wanted to show it to the world, so that's just a fun one.
Yeah, exactly. But these are good examples of, ways people are leveraging some of these tools to just, keep things going. I've heard from students myself that were very concerned about, office hours for a professor or a teacher. How do you do that? Online learning is pretty normal now, but that's for the classes. What about the extras? And so live streaming can really help facilitate that, whether it's, office hours like Khan Academy is doing, or whether it is the musical production or some other event where the large public gathering is being, either restricted or not recommended. But you still want to be able to produce that content. Allowing people to do that live, is a great way to do it. So there's a lot of examples out there. These are just some of the quick rundowns. So I'm going to take a look at chat. I do have that open. That's why I keep looking off to the side here. And of course, we have a bunch of people in chat, Linda and Kim and Tim Trot, and a few other people in chat there saying hi. And I see Dan Wallace in chat there
Oh,
too. Look at that.
Alice.
He's not using his anonymous account today.
Oh,
But yeah, so there were some questions in there. I think we answered some of those already in terms of Lightboard Studio, but Kim had one there relating to music in a live stream. Have we ever experienced using demic sound? No. That's a quick answer to that. No. Maybe you can elaborate on that, Kim.
sure. I'm not really sure what that is.
Yeah.
But I think we have had our live stream taken down once or twice.
We had a VOD taken down when Cameron used a video as a sample that had popular music in it. And so luckily we didn't get taken down live at the time. And I think that's because we tried to walk the line of only having the music play for 10 seconds or less.
Right.
But we actually did have a content ID strike on the VOD after the fact.
It wasn't taken down, but there is now an advertisement on that video.
It was claimed. The ghost of Cameron popping in the background.
Ooh,
He's very defensive about his
live
copyright
fact-checking.
Yes.
Okay. So Dan is clarifying that it's a licensed audio service. So one of the things that's an issue with even licensed audio services with live streaming on YouTube in particular is there's no method to preemptively say that you have a license to something. So some time ago, I made a personal video and wanted to put some music to it. And I did, and it was royalty-free music, but the owner of that royalty-free music wants you to give them credit, but also if you feel like donating to them, you can. The problem is you can't give someone credit in a live stream ahead of time. On YouTube, it's very easy to do in a VOD, but you can't in a live stream. You can't preemptively tell them I have license number XYZ that allows me legal right to use this. Separate topic from today, but that's been coming up a lot with customers in churches trying to do live streaming for that market as well, because the majority of religious music is still copyrighted. You still have to have a license to publicly use it. And so some people on Facebook and YouTube get caught just by that. And this would be no different, where you can't provide your licensing ahead of time. So that can be a challenge. And that's why we generally say, if you're doing it on YouTube, because of the automatic algorithms, just don't, unless you can do it as a VOD, and then you can sort out the licensing.
Yeah, Tim Trot is saying in chat that he's been there, he's done that, he knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. I'm sure it's a pretty standard live event thing.
Phil is suggesting an interesting idea, walking the line, that if you do have background music, if there's voice going over it, then it doesn't really count as the original piece. I'm not telling you to break the law, but it's kind of a little loophole, a little workaround if you're really stuck.
It can be a challenge depending on how accurate the algorithms are. That's the hard part. If your voice volume is constant and is louder than the music, Phil's right, you'll probably get away with it. But if it's predominantly the music and only the video, the speaking audio occasionally, there might be long enough gaps of someone not speaking that the algorithm might pick up the music. But anyway, we've done episodes on, on copyright stuff in the past. I encourage you to go check those out because that kind of thing's only.
We're just about ready to wrap up.
Yeah.
Really hope that teachers everywhere try these methods and get on with teaching their students as fast as possible. So try YouTube. If you have access to CMS like Panopto or Kaltura, use that. Try different setups. Try webcam only. It's not that bad. Just you're getting the information to your students. If you need to go live right now, any option is great. Once you graduate to a more complex scenario, try that as well. Just keep trying things.
Yeah, and the main thing here is this is one of the best ways to make sure that we're still sharing information while practicing social distancing. So leverage what you have. And again, as Marta said, if you have the CMS like a Panopto or Kaltura, probably already ties into your class schedule and everything like that, so you can kind of keep things running as close to as normal as possible, whatever that is now. Like I said, I'm starting to lose track of what day it is. So,
yeah. But check out our blog for more information. We have information on how to set up a studio, how to go live on YouTube, lots of stuff. Check out our blog.
And I think that will do it for today. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And we will be back next week. Next week, we'll be talking about something actually fairly similar, but doing remote video production entirely. And we'll share some of the secrets that we've been doing right now to make this show happen very remotely. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you next week. And always Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye.